Are we ready to become live? Are we living?
Welcome to your awakening. Please take care as your reality is adjusted.
I'm not sure if that come through at the beginning then. That's the question. Are we living? Are we live yet? I'll click the button. I have to click a button to become live, to start living. That's the way this virtual system works. So stop that screen sharing for a minute. In this virtual world, you have to click some buttons to make things live, to make them live. But at least it is only a few clicky buttons. It's not like Frankenstein's monster where we got to go grave robbing and then stitch parts together to make something, and then bring it to life with lightning. Oh, the magic of the technology. Anyway, sorry, doing a late intro and silliness again. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back again. Another edition of Sol Excalibre on this Moon Day evening. Just after the 8 p.m, as I'm sure many of you are used to now. It's only the rare occasions when I'm actually starting exactly on time. It's usually a minute or two late. I was just scrolling down the chat room. Hello to everyone in the chat. Tuzzy's in the chat. Hello. I sings the news. Hello. Maybe you want a better melody for that. I don't know. Malevolence. Hello. Lowlands Pete. Hello. Oops. What are you oopsying about? You're starting off with an oopsie. That's not a good start. Lots of tap throw. Hello, mate. And Ridiculize in the chat. Hello. The Dots, the artist formerly known as. Hello. And Paula, glad you made it. Hello. And hang on. No, the scroll jumped on me a bit then. What's going on? It must be loading or something. Just Space Goat farts. That's what it was. It was because there was farts involved. The chat room tried to jump ahead. Hello, mate. Saul Bollocks, it is indeed. Maybe you should have that as like a surname. Saul Bollocks, it is indeed. I don't know. It just sounds appropriate. The Rebel, hello. I think we're all members of the Rebel Alliance now. I'm doing a lot of that tonight. I think this and adding an addendum to your names. Yeah, it's projection much, yeah. Yeah, I'm rambling now. Shut up, stop rambling and carry on reading the chat and saying hello to people. So, hello. Yeah, it is getting a bit leery out there. I'm going to talk about some of that stuff tonight. Canal, hello. And Patrick Nee, hello. Okay, I think I said hello to most of the people. It's that Sonia White, hello. And Made in UK PLC, hello. And The Realist, hello. Right, okay, I think my chat room's all caught up now. I hope, yeah. Right, I want to play a little clip as well. Actually, I haven't got this prepared, sorted. And this is probably not going to be what you're expecting. Because I know often I'll play little clips that are like news reports of police doing something untoward or whatever. But no, I want to play this because I feel this is certainly a good way to get the point across, and it's got the right kind of energy, which will make sense once you listen to it. So, screen share, and don't forget to include the audio, because that's one of the most important things on this particular little video. I'm going to shut up and click play.
Everywhere I go, there are no smiles. I've been walking, searching for one now for miles. All I see are scared eyes, staring back with hidden smiles. I wish we would all wake up and see what's happening. How can we just do what we're being told? Governments are dictating how they get so bold. Their lies are getting old. Society will fold. When will you stop doing what you're being told? I'm at the top of the world looking down on creation, and the only explanation I can find is you're all out of your mind, walking around as if you're blind, being told what to do on a daily. I'm at the top of the world looking down on creation, and the only explanation I can find is you're all out of your mind, walking around as if you're blind, being told what to do on a daily.
Press me microphone mute as well. That was cool. Thanks to Jam Noise for that. She put that up earlier this afternoon, and I thought that was a really, really nice way to get it across. It's got that uplifting energy to it, but at the same time, you know, the hint is in the lyrics. Hopefully pointing people towards that realization that a lot of this stuff they're trying to tell you to do is just crazy. It's madness. You're out of your mind if you still believe in the bullshit that they're piling on. But you can, in a cliched fashion, you can rise above all of that. And often all it takes is a smile. But of course, you've got to not have the mask on for people to be able to see the smile. So get that effect that the smile carries from one to another. Yeah, a smile can be contagious, and a smile can change your world. Hello, please stop the raid. I've just seen in the chat room, and I'm thinking, Ron Malcolm, hello. And I'm scrolling. Was that a CMB? Hello. And Spirited Woman, CO, is that Colorado? I'm not sure of all the states in America, like what the short version is. I think CO is Colorado, isn't it? Hello. Right, yeah, I think I'm caught up on the chat again. I'll try and remember to come back and say hello again a bit later.
Cookie, I was just going to add to something you said there. I thought people who wear masks outside when they don't have to, I know they're making them in shops and buses and stuff, but I see people walking around just outside with, and that's you know, these are the ones that are really, you know, need to wake up. You know, and the ones still driving the cars on their own with a mask on. Again, see, I've said that right from the start of this. So yeah,
I haven't pulled up the link for it. I'm sure people are quite capable of going and searching this stuff out for themselves. But within the last week, I think it was a few days ago, another research paper coming from Denmark again reiterated, confirmed the however many decades of research has already been on this subject, that masks do not work to prevent the spread of viruses. They're just negligible. Yeah, that's the easiest way to describe it. I think I've used that phrase before. They're statistically insignificant in their effect. So in other words, there's no point in them. And then that brings you to the questions of, well, if we have lockdown, then why the masks? If we have the masks, then why the 6 foot distance? If we have the 6 foot distance, why the vaccine? If any of those are working, why are we combining all of them? You know,
it's just become crazier and crazier as it's gone on, like you say.
The inconsistencies and the contradictions and the fallacies just keep falling over each other.
Yeah.
But in that kind of vein, a couple of links that I did keep open. One which, let me get the link for this in the chat room. And I promise this one won't be a massively long link like that one I tried to share last week that was just like spam. This was in the Daily Mail a couple of days ago, 3 days ago, I think, because wasn't it the 20th, the date on it? Yeah. Well, let me screen share it, because then people who are listening, I can read the headline out and then they can look it up for themselves if they want to. And the people watching can see what it is I'm talking about. What was it, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago? Bojo and his performing clowns, the Chuckle Brothers, as some people like to refer to them as, appeared on our Sunday television with their important announcement about how they would be, beginning a new lockdown, this current lockdown that we're having here in the UK. And they presented this extensive presentation of of charts and graphs and data, which was all very nicely massaged. It's like it had a really deep tissue massage to create the picture that they was after, which was purely to generate the justification to excuse a second lockdown, or to justify a second lockdown. That data was heavily questioned immediately. One of the initial points that they tried to make would be that there'd be 4,000 deaths and stuff like this. And that was quickly debunked by other experts and whatever. But not so long after this, some other journalists actually finally started to sort of look at that information, that presentation, and start pulling it apart. And this is where this part of where this article comes from in the Daily Mail. I think a lot of this work was done by others as well. Like the Off Guardian did a few articles about how the numbers were being massaged. And there's a few other independent journalists that have been keeping track of all this. But this is on, certainly for the UK, this is one of the top 5 mainstream media outlets in the UK. You've got a handful of mainstream news outlets now, you're spoiled for choice. But these are one of the main ones. They certainly reach a large audience in the UK. So the fact that they eventually got to this point of coming forward, and I think they might have changed the headline a little bit. It was a bit more bold originally, where it says what they don't tell you about COVID. But they may very well have, had to alter that since the 20th because of some of the backlash over the coverage of it. But basically, this article in the Daily Mail, what they don't tell you about COVID: fewer beds taken up than last year, deaths a fraction of the government forecast, 95% of fatalities had underlying causes, and how the facts can be twisted to strike fear in our hearts. And really, that's, the primary point. Yeah, because the numbers and the statistics have been deliberately massaged to just generate fear. So we're getting to that point.
Death. Sorry, and death.
Yes,
Sorry.
Yeah. We've got to that point where their narrative is rapidly falling apart.
Yeah.
The ship is sinking, which brings us a bit more up to date. I'm not going to play it, but just to mention, I watched it earlier on Sky News, Bojo's announcement this afternoon. Sorry. Bojo's announcement that the lockdown will end on the 2nd of December. Because this is a question, I'd originally got it in my notes from earlier today when I was just, like I do, I make a few notes. I don't script anything, I just make a few notes. And in my notes, I was making the point about 2nd of December. Why is it that none of the media, if anything, they did completely the opposite? When all this talk started happening about how we would be allowed 5 days of freedom for Christmas, how can we be allowed freedom if we're not under lockdown? If we're not under lockdown, then aren't we already free, according to their definitions? So there was this just ignorance of the current situation, which was supposedly that the current lockdown would end on 2nd of December. But the media just seemed to, oh, fucking hell. Stop it. Oh, man. In an amnesiac fashion, they seem to have completely forgotten about the 2nd of December date. Why was that? Yeah, they just conveniently left it out. But anyway, this afternoon, Bojo making his little announcement saying, oh, well, the lockdown will end on the 2nd. Man, this frog. I'm waiting for the frog to bugger off. So this lockdown will end on the 2nd, but there's still, the national lockdown will end. The lockdown effect is still going to be carrying on, because all that's going to happen is they're going to switch to using localized or regional lockdowns based on test results. So when the numbers in the press are matched, or the numbers being put out to the press are so heavily massaged that you can't really rely on them in any sensible way to make any judgment about what to do, say, with your business over the coming months. You can't make any plans until you hear what the latest diktats are. That massaging of numbers means you can't be certain unless you either travel to another region or people who live in a different region. You can't be certain whether what the media is telling you about the numbers in your region is accurate or how it compares to the numbers in other regions. So to try and sort of get to the point of why I'm saying that is, they could lock down an area and just tell the people in that area, oh, your numbers are one of the worst in the country, therefore you've got to go on tier 3 lockdown, which is basically the same as what we've got under the national lockdown restrictions. And they can do that to each separate region. And as I say, unless you either move to find out for yourself, or other people in those regions and you can ask them, what's going on in your area, what are they telling you in your local area, they could do this around the country. And as I argued months ago, when they suggested this localized lockdown system, if they lock down 95% of the country, region by region, isn't that basically the equivalent of a national lockdown anyway? And it wouldn't even need to be 90-odd%. It'd only take some key areas, some key regions of the infrastructure of society to be shut down, and that would have a rolling knock-on effect to basically create the equivalent of a national lockdown anyway. So this idea that the lockdown ends is bogus. That was the point I was making last week with the subtitle last week, the final lockdown. It's the final lockdown because they've got no intention of stopping it. This is a lockdown up until the point of either they get what they want, as in the technocratic New World bullshit that they're trying to force everybody to go along with, or their ship sinks, their house of cards falls apart, and people start basically getting back to what they call normal. I can't remember the guy's name now, but that classic quote, I've used it many times in the past: men go mad in crowds and come to their senses slowly and one by one. And he's making the point about how I tried to describe it as like the lag effect that you get. People go mad in mobs and in ideological demographic groupings. They go mad, very rapidly in a group, and then they slowly, individually realize, oh, we went a bit too far, didn't we? And the individuals start peeling off from the group until in the end that group effect falls apart. So there's a certain lag that takes place. but I think we've reached the kind of what's the word for it? The critical mass of the lag at the moment. I would argue that the reason Bojo made this announcement today, it's the 23rd of the 11th, so it's a full week before the 2nd of December, so we didn't need to do this now, but they're making this announcement now that, oh, don't worry, folks, the lockdown will end and we'll have the vaccine. Yeah, you're going to get the vaccine. We're going to roll out this mass vaccination program and everything will be lovely. You'll be able to go back to work as long as you got your freedom pass. Yeah, that's why this week's subtitle may seem a bit confusing or convoluted the way I've worded it. Free pass for zero mass, as in you're not allowed to have Christmas unless you following the rules or prove that you've got the free pass. Zero mass or local crocodile tiers, and that's in reference to that regional tiered system, which they'll go, oh, we're terribly sorry. We're sorry we have to do this to you. That's crocodile tiers, yeah? Tiers, as in TEARS, rather than TIERS, as in a tiered system. I'm sure you get it. So, yeah, the silliness that has been happening over the last week and weekend. Dominic Cummings getting the sack. Oh, mysterious. Priti Patel being dragged over the coals for her nasty behaviour, which is just, pretty obvious to most people that she's a bullying kind of personality. But yeah, Bojo's cabinet ship is sinking rapidly. So I think the reason they sort of jumped ahead and started making these kind of announcements and talking about having a vaccine with 90+% efficacy before Christmas is because they're losing control of the narrative. Their ship is sinking. It's falling apart. We've supposedly been under lockdown, but I've seen people out and about all the time. It's pretty much as busy as a normal everyday day. And people have been back to work in many cases. Yeah? Not everyone. People are still being hit by the lockdown itself. But a lot of people have just ignored it and got on with what they're doing. So, are we watching the beginning of the end now? I think I'm suggesting anyway, I'm proposing, I'm positing that what we're seeing is the end of the UK franchise of this bullshit. This is the beginning of the end of the web of lies that Bojo and his cabinet have woven to create the justification for the police state at the moment in the UK. It is starting to rapidly fall apart. The BMJ editor posting that article, which we talked about last week, as I showed, the Daily Mail, a main newspaper, putting out a critique of the government's justification statistics. Bojo having to make this announcement that he didn't really need to make. The rushed talk of vaccines, we're going to have one any day soon, just keep waiting, just keep following that carrot, the carrot on the stick, keep following it, any day now, any day, come on a little bit further, kitty. That's what they're doing to folks because they know they're losing control of the lie. So stand your ground, sing louder. The video I played from Jam Noise earlier, sing louder, because their ridiculousness is now so revealing itself, as Peter mentioned a good while ago, several weeks ago, a couple of months ago at least, I think.
Yeah.
If anything, give them a little bit of thanks for their dumb performance. Because what they're doing is causing more and more people to realise the bullshit that they're being presented with.
Yeah.
I know I'm sort of rambling on a bit, doing a kind of monologue like I often do, but just one other thing to show on this. Okay, Independent won't let me look directly at it because I'm not a subscriber and blah, ad blocker. Thanks to Taz for sharing this link. But just to make the point that the corporatism, the business sector, will keep pushing the demand for the free pass, the freedom pass.
Yeah.
You know, Qantas to only accept passengers who have had coronavirus vaccine, even though there isn't a vaccine yet readily available for most people, unless you want to travel to Russia. But they're already stating, like Ticketmaster did the other week, that they're, as a business, they're going to be asking that you have proof of your vaccination before you're being allowed to fly on Qantas. So Qantas is going to be going out of business, I predict. They've been losing money for a long time, though, haven't they?
We did say the airline sector was going to be in travel, restriction of travel.
Yeah.
Was part of this as well. This bigger, keeping you where you're at, not having your freedom to travel around the globe. It's interesting you mentioned the Freedom Pass, because there was an article out the Daily Mail yesterday, and I can't find it now. But it was saying they were thinking of this Freedom Pass to be introduced here, but you'd have to get tested twice a week. I think that's what it said. And you
have to prove negative in 2 tests per week.
And then you can walk around without a mask, not social distance, and you can just show your little card when everyone starts to freak out. It's for fuck's sake. But that's what they're proposing. Whether it
can I just point out a little bit of simple logic, and it's part of why I put the free pass in the subtitle kind of thing, because of all that. But just a simple little bit of logic: you can never have a passport for freedom. This was a point I made ages ago. The little graphic I did of the gates of Auschwitz, where I'd done a really bad Photoshop job, because I'm crap with that kind of stuff. But I just where is it? Oh, I don't know. I'll just describe it. I can't find it at the moment. I basically wrote license over the bit where it says, what is it? Work makes free, isn't it? I can't remember what it is in German, but basically I put license makes free, license macht frei. You cannot have a license for freedom, because in doing so, that's an oxymoron, because the word freedom means you don't need a license for what you're doing. So you cannot ever have a license for freedom. As soon as any concept of license or passport or papers get involved, then what you have is not freedom. It's as simple as that. So when
try going anywhere without your passport, try and leave the country. Yeah, exactly.
But as soon as they mention that, which they've been doing a lot with all this kind of stuff, and I know many people have done good coverage of the kind of where you got the psychological manipulation elements of how they mess with people's thinking processes by deliberately giving them contradictions like that, because it creates dissonance, that kind of effect. And the occultic connection of the reason they deliberately use paradoxes and contradictions in a similar fashion. That dissonance that they create in you makes you more likely to be a victim to what they're trying to do to you, to manipulate you in some fashion, which is them harvesting your spiritual energy. So just that simple observation, when they say to you, we want to give you a freedom pass, it's like, are you insane? You're talking gibberish, because what you just said makes no sense whatsoever. How are you in the position of work that you are? I thought that position required responsibility and, the ability to use your cognitive function. So if you think saying that phrase, those words together, freedom pass, makes any logical, rational sense, that indicates to me there's something wrong, something misfiring with your thinking process, or you've been very poorly educated such that you think it makes logical sense. You can't think through what you're actually saying. You have no comprehension of the meaning of what you just said. So you obviously need some help, and you certainly shouldn't be working in the job that you're supposedly in. a politician or an advisor, a scientist or whatever. Yeah, but no. A lot of those very simple elements, because of the way they're messing with concepts of ideologies and fear-based manipulations and whatever, I know that for a lot of people, that kind of stuff just goes straight over their head, because all they're looking at is, will I die from this illness? Will my loved ones get it? And blah, blah. You know, they're looking at the fear effect. So they miss what they've just been told, is completely irrational and makes no sense. If somebody wearing a tinfoil hat said something like that to you, you go, oh, yeah, you're crazy, aren't you? Because the majority of people have been predisposed with that bias of, if you ever see anyone wearing a tinfoil hat, you automatically assume that they're mentally impaired in some fashion.
Well, you could argue as well, just like you said, we were saying, but lots of people have said it over years, you know, that they were going to create a centralized system, and now we've got this great reset thing, and we were called all crazy for, you know, saying that kind of like the New World Order. Now they're just spouting it everywhere you go, you know, on the mainstream. You know, this is the new solutions they've got from the World Economic Forum, and all them crazy mob.
I got to share this day. This is a good place to share this. Before I do that, just to mention why it says zero mass in the subtitle, as in no Christmas. Yeah, no is you can use zero as a simile for no. You know, nothing, naught, none. You know, so that's why I put zero mass, free pass or zero mass. You know, but yeah, in reference to the WEF. Hang on, screen share. Many thanks to Big T for
I've seen this. Yes,
putting these together for us. Yeah, Klaus Blofeld and his lovely cat, but there's more. If you've ever seen the movie Spaceballs, you'll know what that's referring to. Yeah, and then I think that's just spot on. Thanks too. Yeah, that's just cracking. He's definitely the leader of the World Earth Federation that's trying to roll out their new order, the new dark order of the Great Reich. You know, look into his background and who he's related to and blah blah blah. You know, beyond the kind of cartoonification of how much he is just like a Bond villain. You know, that's why I keep referring to him as Blofeld, because he just looks and acts like he's a Bond villain. Or I know many people have referred to Dr. Strangelove. Yeah, he just, why they chose him or why he sort of pushed himself forward as a spokesman just boggles me, because it's like, maybe it's an age thing. You know, just the fact that that kind of imagery and the way he presents himself, his heavy accent, the way he talks about things being frightening, it's frightening, and all this kind of shit. So, what the hell? Am I being? Is this part of the superhero movie franchise that's been going recently? Like, is he like Thanos? Yeah. It's going to be frightening. We have to sacrifice half of the population for the Great Reset. Yeah. It's just, yeah. Oh dear. May the Schwartz be with you. Yeah. Yeah. All this going on at the moment. Again, this is not something that I had like pulled up ready to share, but I'm sure people are either already aware of it or they can easily find it for themselves. And one part of the American media, picking on the American media in particular, because that's, you know, where I've seen good examples of this. One part of the American media, they're putting up headlines, almost like front page headlines, that are saying all this talk about the Great Reset is just a silly right-wing conspiracy theory. There's nothing to it. And then on the other paper, like I think we covered this weeks ago, The Economist cover with the globe, where they're sort of rebuilding the globe, and it's like a made out of wood and painted and whatever. So That was on Time magazine. Yeah, Time. No, sorry, The Economist. Was it Time?
One
I'm
of them.
getting the two mixed up. I think it might have been Time magazine. So on one of them, one mainstream media journal, they're making it up front like, look, everyone, World Economic Forum, the Great Reset, here we go, hey. And on the other one, they're saying, oh, you talk about that, you must be one of those crazy tinfoil hatters. So, is it? Isn't it? Meanwhile, while people are in that dissonance of they don't know whether it is real or not, now it is real. Is real. Because companies like Qantas and Ticketmaster and your big supermarket chains are implementing infrastructure and rules that require you to do these certain things to be allowed to use their services or buy their goods. So whether you think it is a silly conspiracy theory, by the time you've gone through that dissonance phase, only a few months really, the other side of Christmas probably, considering how much chaos Christmas generally causes, you're going to be in a world where that great reset is already taking place. I don't know how else to say it to try and get the point across that you might think that it is a bit of a weird thing that somebody's presenting this idea that the whole world needs to be shifted in some fashion. That's the kind of thing that you only even really see in a movie, like a James Bond movie, with a Bond villain. It's something somebody would make up for a fictional story, isn't it? It's not something that would be taking place in the real world. But as we've mentioned many times, the majority of what we're talking about is based on information that's in the public domain, on official government websites, on official NGO websites, etc. You can go and look it up for yourself. When they're making it so in your face obvious that these people are saying, we want to do this. Prince Charles is talking about how we need to do this. Trudeau, Turdy Trudeau is talking about how we need to do this. And however many of them are all using that phrase, build back better. And you still want to, you're still thinking what the press is, it's a crazy conspiracy theory. Yeah. How else do you say it to someone that's stuck in that kind of level of dissonance? They don't want to accept that it's a conspiracy theory because that's a dirty word. That's like saying, you're a man that likes wearing women's underwear or something. People feel a bit creeped out by it, so they don't want to say it. But they might say it in a different way. Okay, so you don't want to say conspiracy theory. How about corruption?
Yeah, lies.
Yeah.
Constant
fraud.
Lying. Yeah.
Theft, embezzlement.
All crimes. They're all criminal offences.
Exactly.
And, exactly. They'll all be tried for these things or put to a court and be, judged.
And often there's a conflation that occurs that's propagated by the system, and they deliberately encourage people to fall into this kind of trap because it serves their purpose. But when people talk about these kind of organizations like the World Economic Forum and the UN agendas, the 2030, the Sustainable Development Goals and whatever, things like that, there's this push, this psychological tripping point that has been enabled by many people that are often in this kind of realm, like, the classic Ike kind of situation. There's this conflation fallacy that occurs where if you suggest anything that has a hint of conspiracy to it, such as the potential that people in the shadows of the governments have been actively working towards enabling this situation to force the world to switch into a new technocratic dystopian setup, that implies such a level of conspiracy theory that people automatically fall straight into an assumption of, well, what, you think aliens are controlling the world? You think it's one big giant conspiracy that's all being controlled by Sauron You know, there's this big eye sat on top of a pyramid somewhere telling everyone what to do. It's like, why are you jumping straight to that conclusion? If you can see the possibility and potential of a conspiracy, then you should start applying deductive reasoning from that point, not just in a what would be called a non sequitur fashion, jump straight from that beginning to an automatic assumption that, oh, well, what you're suggesting then is a massive singular global conspiracy run by alien entities or even the devil or whatever. I didn't say that. You're jumping straight ahead. Why are you doing that? Yeah, you've seen plenty of court cases of people being prosecuted for conspiracy or what is often done with like gang related crimes, you know, or the mafia or whatever. The perpetrators are arrested and prosecuted initially on a kind of individual basis based on the crimes they're suspected of. But then what usually happens is they also get an additional charge on the fact that they were conspiring together. So in other words, a conspiracy is proven in a court case and people are sent to jail for taking part in a conspiracy. Yeah. In the same fashion as like the Enron affair from many years ago, that was a conspiracy to defraud the public. All right. So why jump ahead? Every good detective is somebody that presumes or maybe speculates, I could say, to be a bit more open. You know, they speculate of a conspiracy. They look for motive and possibility of being able to carry out the crime, or could they only carry it out if they had help of somebody else? That's a conspiracy. They may not sit there and go, my conspiracy theory about how Mr. Bloggs died. Yeah, and then they start writing their manifesto of who they blame. Yeah, they don't approach it in that fashion, but the process they go through of applying deductive reasoning has that open possibility. Well, there could be a conspiracy involved in this. It might be more than one person carrying out the crime. That is a conspiracy. Yeah, but most of the public are encouraged and often cajoled into this thinking process of, well, as soon as you hear somebody suggest conspiracy, you just automatically assume the most extreme thing we've ever shown to you. And we show you a lot of extreme things because we pump out cultural media that shows you extreme possibilities. So it is aliens in a bunker, you know, controlling everyone around the world and shit like that. Fantasizing, turn it into a fiction so that it can then be ridiculed and ignored. But how much evidence do you need of corruption, conflicts of interest, manipulation of data and facts, obfuscation of information such that that's the equivalent of defrauding or lying to the public because they're hiding information or, you know, just putting it out in a place where they know nobody will ever see it or look for it. You know, things like manipulating freedom of information requests so that they don't really answer the question or provide the information, or something like, as has happened a few times recently, because a few people have done it, when they've been asked for the information of isolation of SARS-CoV-2, then they can't provide it. They come up with some excuse of like, oh, it's no longer on our database, or, oh, we don't have samples available. Yeah. But supposedly, even though they claim they have isolated it in the past, every time somebody asks for proof of that via a freedom of information request or a lab requesting a sample so they can do research, they get denied. If it's been proven and isolated, then labs all over the world should have little samples of it to use for research, but they don't. Why is that? Is it because it just doesn't exist? How many of those coincidences need to be added up? I know I've asked this question many times. How many coincidences does it take before you see the conspiracy? Conspiracy doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing. Conspiracy can be for somebody's benefit, not necessarily for their detriment. It just means to work together in a kind of secret fashion with others, breathe together,
be honest together.
Yeah.
And that might be a good thing, isn't it, for a change? Honesty and moving in that better direction rather than the constant way they've got us, conspiring or whatever, and it's changing. It's coming. It's
Well,
all going to get better.
On that point of change,
and
I know for some people out there, they think that this, is just succumbing to the influence of what the fuckheads are trying to do, what those usurpers are trying to do.
Yeah.
But
there's plenty of people standing up though now. I'm seeing more and more myself, so it's good.
This is something that a subject that I've talked about many times in the past. I've covered it in a few different ways, and I've referred to this kind of information many times. This is the process of the 5 stages of bereavement or loss and grief, the way they describe it on that link. Let me bring it up on the screen share for a minute, just so I can reference it for people. I'm not going to read all through it or whatever. It's just more to show it for reference. The 5 stages of grief, or bereavement. I prefer to refer to it as the 5 stages of bereavement. And this is, not hard and fast rules. This is just a suggested. It's a theory. It's certainly the fact that it comes from psychology means, it's a soft science mostly. It's more qualitative than quantitative, so therefore it's not considered a hard science. But anyway, this was first proposed by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross in a 1969 book on death and dying. The 5 stages, I remembered this for years through the acronym, DABDA, DABDA, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But it's true for most people that you will go through all of these phases at some point. They don't necessarily go in a linear progression. Some people will experience them in a different order. Sometimes you'll repeat some of them. You'll be in anger for a bit, then you'll go back to denial, then you'll start bargaining, then you'll go back to denial, then you go to depression. It's not a hard, fast kind of linear process. But these phases, I feel, for the number of times I've talked to people about this and been in this kind of situation myself and whatever, it holds true for the vast majority of people that you will go through this process when dealing with grief and loss, bereavement in particular. Now, why am I bringing this up? Partly because we were talking about it the other night amongst ourselves. Tazzy mentioned it and said it'd be good if we touched on the subject again. And I said, yes, definitely. Considering all the stuff that's going on at the moment, some of these elements are part of how they manipulate people. Very much 2 phases are used by the system, certainly are being used at the moment, to manipulate the public en masse, to keep being afraid and keep falling into that follow the carrot. You're going to have a vaccine any minute now, a vaccine. And that's all primarily based on the bargaining and anger. Anger has got the potential of turning you away from what they're doing. So they like to use it to wind you up, to get you frustrated. But then you hit their wall of bureaucracy or their wall of police, as now represented by the harder crackdown of the police on COVID deniers and anti-maskers and anti-vaxxers and all that bullshit that they're using, all those labels they're using. But they'll wind you up, they'll get you angry, you'll then hit that wall, of the bureaucracy and the police, you get knocked back by that, and they know that that will cause you psychological damage. That will cause you trauma. That will make you frustrated and depressed. And it will cause you to withdraw because you feel that your efforts don't achieve anything. So you're more likely to fall into learned helplessness and to give up trying to do anything. Yeah, apathy takes hold, and you give up trying to deal with their shit. But the main one is the bargaining phase, and that's the section where an abuser can manipulate you in that phase. And most abusers try to elicit that phase in the victim because they know through that they can abuse the victim, and in a simplistic fashion, I'll describe it as reprogram them. You know, this is the kind of psychological manipulation that's used by cult leaders to convince people that, you know, if they do certain things, the cult leader will be happy with you. You'll get your chocolate ration this week because you've done what they demanded of you. But I'm sort of rushing ahead a bit on this to explain what bargaining phase is. As it says, normal reactions of helplessness and vulnerability, and you often feel a need to regain control by bargaining, as in an if only. If only is a bargain. You're trying to strike a bargain with the whatever it was that took away the person you loved or thing you loved, etc. Yeah? If only we'd sought medical attention, if only we got a second opinion, if only we had tried to be a better person towards them. You know, people go through a phase where they bargain with the whatever it was, the power, the, you know, as an element that they think could be addressed, whether that's in a literal sense, as in, you know, you can't talk to a car. If your loved one was run over by a vehicle, you know, you can't exactly appeal to the vehicle, but you'll still go through the psychological process of trying to do that in a way. Yeah, it's, oh, if only that car would turn to the side at the last minute or something. Yeah? It's those if only questions that are bargaining questions. During that phase, an abuser, as I say, can offer you solutions or rewards if you choose to, you know, go along with what they're showing to you. So they can put you into a situation of trauma such that you begin feeling that you are subject to an authority that controls the options you have available to you, and then they manipulate you by what they present to you. That's why I've referred to it before as that kind of sexual fetish relationship, a BDSM relationship. I know, as somebody pointed out in the comment section a few weeks ago, you know, in the majority of BDSM relationships, it's voluntary. The subordinate and the master are voluntarily having that relationship. But what's going on here between the government and the citizenry is certainly no longer voluntary. Once a state starts descending into dictatorial regimes and police state attitudes and shit, it's not voluntary anymore, is it? It's not consent anymore. But this kind of manipulation is how they can steer people. But the main reason I bring this up again, I think it's worth bringing up again at the moment, is because this process of bereavement, I feel this is what is happening to the world as a whole. We know subconsciously or deep down, maybe, you know, some people are aware of it consciously, or they're starting to feel it in a subtle way, in a non-describable way, that something has to change. Things are changing. Yeah, that doesn't mean you have to walk away from or give up those things you love, those traditions that you want to keep, those cultural elements that make your culture what it is, etc., etc. Like Christmas, 0 mass this year. Yeah, this change that's occurring doesn't mean you have to walk away from all that stuff that you hold dear, but it does mean there are major changes going on. I get the impression as well that a lot of what's happening recently and that energetic change that some of us have been sensing is very, very similar to what happened in the build up to 9/11. Yeah, there was a similar kind of energy spike before the event of 9/11. It wasn't like the energy spike happened when everyone turned on the news and saw the image of the planes and blah, blah, blah. No. The energy spike that was registered by the random number generators, which were monitored by the parapsychological and parascience study groups, began before the event of 9/11 happened. There's this upswell of energy that people know something is happening like that, a major change. And whenever there's a major change, that means something stops being. Yeah, in effect, something dies in a metaphorical way. And I've talked about this many times for that reason. A lot of the situation of people's difficulty in dealing with what's happening around them is because they're stuck in that little loop of that depression cycle, depression, anger, bargaining, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. Yeah, before they even get to the acceptance, they're still stuck in the loop because something that they held dear or wanted to keep or wanted to love for their whole life has died off. It's gone away. It's not there anymore. And what the system is currently doing, what they've been doing for this year, is trying to force people through that bereavement process, but doing it by using fear to drive them through the process like a slave master with a whip. Yeah, that causes people trauma, psychological trauma to the nth degree, as well as, of course, it's forcing people to do something they don't really want to do and then expecting them to be happy about it. Huh? But if you can look at that kind of psychological process that's described there, whether you believe in psychology or whatever, I'm certainly not talking about psychiatry, very different things. Psychology, there's no drugs involved, certainly not from my point of view. Anyway, if you can look at the situation with that perception of applying that concept to what's a lot of what's happening, it can help to move you forward, or you can help others to move forward from being stuck in that anger and bargaining phase. Getting angry is a good way of tapping that energy. Anger is an energy that can be utilized in a beneficial way. It doesn't have to be destructive. It doesn't have to be personally destructive or to the environment around you. And the bargaining, that is the worst sticking point for most people. The majority of people out there at the moment that are walking around wearing masks are doing it because they're stuck in the bargaining phase. They think that if they bargain with the system, as in, the big master is telling me I must do this certain thing to be allowed to carry on doing what I normally do, what I love to do, what I want to do. It's like a master making a demand of the subject, of the supplicant. They're doing it for bargaining. They want the master to allow them carrying on with their liberties. So it's a bargaining phase problem. If you can see that old world reality is dead, it's done, it's gone. Even if they drop everything that they've been trying to do this year, if the Klaus Schwab, is suddenly revealed to be the Bond villain that he looks like, and some of them get prosecuted, and all great stuff happens, the world is still not going to be the same, because the world has now gone through this COVID 2020 nightmare. So therefore, the world is now what it used to be, plus the damage from the trauma of the COVID 2020 nightmare. So this expectation of the world must go back to the way it was, it can never go back to the way it was. You're living in a fantasy. That's a delusional fantasy that will keep you stuck in that grief cycle. You will be forever grieving for the world that you knew in 2019. It's not 2019 anymore, it's 2020. If more, sorry, mate, just to try and wrap up some of what I'm saying. If more people can get a kind of grip on this, I'm not trying to say they need to get a hold of themselves, pull yourself together. because I know there's plenty of good justification to be pissed off and righteously angry about all this shit. But if you can get a grasp of that kind of grief process and how elements of it are being used deliberately to manipulate people. You want your Christmas back? You got to do what we're telling you because you want your Christmas, don't you? So I can have my Christmas anyway, no matter what the fuck you say. So why are you trying to use it to threaten me? Christmas is nothing to do with the government. You know, and that's even if you choose that kind of lifestyle, that kind of religious belief, that whatever you describe it as, you know, and Christmas isn't for everyone. But if you do choose it, what the fuck's that got to do with government? It's nothing to do with government. So how are they trying to use it to manipulate you? They're trying to use it because they're giving you, they are implanting the impression that you're about to lose it, that it's going to become lost. So they initiate the process of grief in you, and then they're manipulating that grief. So why are you allowing them to manipulate you with grief when they can't take the thing away from you anyway? Does that make sense? Huh?
Well, I was just thinking, I did hear someone saying that the last time someone interfered with Christmas was Cromwell. I tried to.
Yeah, he tried to ban it because he thought it was paganistic bullshit, basically. Which, to be honest, it is. Yeah. If you're a Christian, Christmas is, maybe that's my point of view. I think it's highly questionable. I'm not saying people shouldn't have it. I think it's good because it celebrates that time of year. I think it's slightly misaligned because really it should be on the solstice.
It's
and you
Yule,
should
isn't it? The Yule time. That's.
But a lot of that stuff has all been twisted and mashed together into all this silliness of how, if you believe in shit like that, you're a paganist, which means you're a devil worshipper, which means you're the infidel. Get the pitchforks.
Get Santa out and keep shopping.
Yeah.
That's how, keep spending money in the material world and keep that going. Yeah, well,
that's right. I've got a little habit of obviously I don't usually do it on here because I'm not usually in the chat room, but in the emoticons in the Google chat system, there's a good combination of the punch emoticon with the Father Christmas face. So I like putting the two together. So it's like Father Christmas giving you a punch in the face. It's like, this very concept should be like a punch in your cerebellum to make you realize how the commercial system messes with you. You know, Santa Claus and the way it's presented and all that. What can I describe it as? Saccharine, sugary, of the commercialized, cartoonified holy day.
Coca-Cola day.
If it's a holy day, why the fuck are you celebrating by spending all your wealth in these temples of consumerism? Shouldn't you be celebrating that guy who was on the crucifix, who supposedly gave his life for your eternal savior, your eternal salvation? Shouldn't you be celebrating that, not celebrating some plastic image of a fat guy with a beard and a red suit? What the fuck's going on here? But maybe I'm just a bit too Cromwell.
You're taking me back to when I was about 10 years or whatever old and thinking, why is these two stories as they don't make sense?
Yeah.
But they present you with, isn't it? The madness of it all.
I want to emphasize in this the perception that I think I've described it this way before. When I refer to your world, your world is your everything. If your world is taken away, it is the equivalent to psychological death. It's obviously not literal death, but it's psychological death. Your persona, which is the general sort of me that most of us are, that we interact with the world with and stuff like that, your persona develops within the environment that you grow up and you spend your time in. So if that environment is then taken away from you or changed to such a degree that in effect the environment you knew is gone, it's dead, what your persona is experiencing is the equivalent to a bereavement. The stages of grief and loss. This is why I've tried to present this idea so many times, because I found it helpful to when I was still, heavily stuck into the kind of anger and shaking my fist at the government and just thinking that I can, well, if I do this, if I fill out this form, or if I make this request, if I do what they tell, bargaining, yeah. And it's so it doesn't help. It doesn't change the system. It doesn't move anything forward. You're just running in a little circle while they're carrying on doing what they want to do. Yeah, if people can get that concept of, obviously I'm talking in a kind of metaphorical fashion, but your world is where you live. If they radically change your world to the point that, as far as you're concerned, it's dead, what you're experiencing is that level of bereavement. And during that time, because they keep piling on this concept that, hey folks, the world's done, can't have the old world anymore, you got to have the great reset, the new world order, everybody's in a state of grief because they're all being told that the world they knew is dead. So get over your grief, folks. Yeah, the world is dead. Long live the world, but who's going to rule it? Not them.
Exactly. Which direction? And that's what we talk about as well. Because this is all there with the direction they want to go. But
yeah, they keep piling it on of how dictatorial it's going to get, how much you're going to have, and they say it with a smiley face. Smiley face fascism. So, oh yeah, you can have a test at the airport, and if you have your COVID pass, you'll be allowed on the plane.
How badly do you need a holiday? But then with all the airlines collapsing, and I said this way back early on in the year, the prices of these cheap holidays is all gone as well. That's the other thing, like letting go of, you thought you could just zoom off somewhere 3 times a year and get a cheap flight and not get any real hassle, just in and out and off you go. No, that's all different now because most of those airlines are going to go, or they're struggling now. And the prices obviously will go up maybe 3 times, 4 times. And they'll make it very, exclusive, just for the rich. This is how I see that sort of playing out in the short term. Obviously, we're going to go through a lot of changes anyway. This is their sort of how they want to take us, like you say, the direction they want to go. But they're underestimating people and the power of our energy and thoughts and our intentions and where we're going, and how we all like-minded, and the collective energy like that is always needed. 100,000, 1 million people with an energy like that to send something good out and stop, whatever. There's the power of that which they don't understand because they just live in a material. And like I say, it's all making no sense to people because we're not daft. We can see it's like, what? I know
for a lot of the general public, or certainly a large demographic of the general public, commonly, and this is why I've often used this kind of approach before, a good portion of people are commonly stuck in the denial phase. They haven't even got through the denial phase, because you'll tell them something, or you'll point them towards some information or a document or something, and they'll just be like, no, that's the denial. Yeah, it's like in this kind of representation, the stages of bereavement. That's like when you get the knock at the door and you're told, oh, your husband or wife or whoever it is for you, oh, they died in a car accident, terribly sorry. And you're like, no, don't believe it. It can't be true. Can't be. That's the denial phase. Yeah. Because for most people, a lot of the information we're often looking at, and certainly a lot of the perspectives we're often pointing towards, things like, the World Economic Forum and the Agenda 21 and all that kind of stuff, people don't want to look in that direction because they know it will cause the death of the world they currently live in. What was I saying earlier about your world is where you live? Yeah, where you live is your world. That is your life. Yeah. So if they kill off your world, for you, that's like experiencing a psychological death or a bereavement. So people do the denial phase thing because they know subconsciously, for most people, they just subconsciously get this sensation of like, shit, if I go that direction and look at that information, it will destroy the world I live in at the moment. I don't want that to happen. So I just deny it. Don't want to know, walk away. Yeah. The system uses that knowledge of people's psychology against us all. They deliberately do it. They know that for a lot of people, they don't need to make everything super secret, because for a lot of people, they've been so heavily entrained by the system, the concept of looking at those things will just frighten them so much that they won't be interested. Again, it can sound somewhat derogatory. I'm not trying to put people down or say everyone's stupid or childish or whatever. Most of the problem comes from the system itself has encouraged us to be this way. They give us a poor education system. I'm sorry if you're a teacher or an educator and that frustrates you a bit, but the general curriculum of certainly in the UK and most westernized countries, most countries around the world really, the modern curricular system and the way they educate children is just shit. It's not creating independent, intelligent, thinking, objective, critically thinking people. It's just not. It's creating drones, which was exactly what it was designed to do up until the last maybe couple of decades, and now it's designed to make fractured people. It's designed to make people with basically psychologically induced schizophrenia. When you combine that with the manipulation of the environment, such as altered foods, processed foods, pollution of the general environment, constant pollution of the mind through the crappy media that they portray this shit through, you end up with people who are basically schizophrenic. Yeah, they don't know what gender they are. They don't know what planet they live on. They're not sure if this is even reality or some kind of simulation. They don't know if they should be black, white, green, or yellow, and whether they should be wearing a rainbow flag or sticking an A on their forehead and saying they're anti-food. They're in all different directions, fragmented. That is part of the classical diagnosis of schizophrenia. They're creating the 21st century schizoid man, as King Crimson described it like 3 or 4 decades ago. Yeah?
In this,
it's deliberate.
I'm going to say in the medical political complex that we've talked about.
Yeah,
last week.
That's something very much that's tied into this, and certainly I think with the recent announcements from Bojo and whatever, they know they're losing control of the narrative, so they're rushing ahead to capture the marketplace that have already succumbed to the bullshit. And once they do that, that will give them then more justification to carry on the lie. They have to keep reinforcing that lie because it's falling apart. Yeah, it's like they've made a ship out of mud or shit. Yeah, they've made a ship out of shit. It's a shit ship. And they have to keep patching it up constantly with more shit, otherwise it will sink. Yeah, that's what Bojo does on a daily basis. That's what their spin teams do every day.
That's what they do, isn't it? That's their job. That's their talent to lie to you in a very clever way. But it's not really lies. They'll call it's
the study of experts.
We came up with this.
You can't use the word lie in Parliament. You're not allowed to call politicians liars. You'll get fined for that.
We'll just keep building back better bullshit, and
you might get a slap on the wrist from the Speaker of the House.
Yeah,
and I want to mention this as well. This is, I'm sure James Corbett has either been listening in to us or he gets information maybe via a third party or something, but
it's in the ether. Could be in the ether, couldn't it?
In the zeitgeist.
Giving it out there, and people just think, oh, that's a good idea, and just
and the good ideas spread. Don't necessarily need to know exactly who they came from originally. If there's a good idea, they get passed on. So you can often come across stuff in a very organic fashion, but it was his editorial he put up in his latest newsletter for this week. I think it was today. I read it earlier today anyway. But he's talking about, obviously, hang on, let me just quickly switch the screen share. How to Save the World, and he's giving it the good superhero meme trope. How to save the world, be the superhero. And it's covering the kind of points we're very often talking about. So many people get stuck in the kind of it is an element of the bargaining phase, I think, where when you talk about this kind of stuff, one of their first reactions is, well, what's your plan? What's your solution? Where's your list of how we fix all these problems? Why aren't you now being my politician and telling me how to live my life? That's what happens. Yeah. It's a transference of projection.
Yes.
They used to externalize all their authority into the politician. Now the politician has proved himself to be a twat. They're going, I need to find somebody new. So they come and they hear us speak, and they're like, oh, right, now you are my new Lord and Savior. Now you have to tell me what is the solution. I mean, James isn't on about that in this, but it was just to make the point that the way he describes it, because he references Thomas Paine's pamphlet, Common Sense. Yeah, and he's making the point. This is what makes me think he's been listening to us, because this was a point I made on your broadcast last Wednesday. You think about the sheer scale of the media complex as it is at the moment, right?
Yeah.
2 years ago, that media complex was making a little bit of effort to deal with the crazy people on the internet like me and you talking about these subjects that you must be crazy if you think this World Economic Forum is something suspicious. They made a little bit of effort to sort of throw shit in our direction and redirect the public elsewhere. But this year, that very same media complex has been going heavily to try and deal with the information that most of the public is sort of looking at now, because most people don't go to the TV anymore for the news or whatever. They go to the internet. So for a lot of people, they're looking at information from multiple different sources, or they're getting it passed under their nose because a friend shares a link on Fartbook or Twitter or whatever, and they're like, oh, what's this? A lot more of that is happening organically, but at the same time, the media complex has been trying really hard to deal with the information and the rational arguments that have been coming out of the general populace, the independent journalists, the independent alternative media, whatever you want to call them, the Joe Bloggs blogger, whatever. They've had to put a hell of a lot more effort into dealing with that. That correlates to that event 201, where they openly talked about how they would need to deal with the questioners and the deniers. The
pandemic, you mean?
And clamp down on information sharing.
Yeah.
So this is kind of in reference to that, but James is making the point, which via using the example of Thomas Paine's pamphlet. Thomas Paine's pamphlet was nothing like the fucking internet, It was a printed pamphlet. It wasn't, no fancy sparkly lights, no swipe left, no games in between. When you've read a sentence and you begin to get bored, you need to play again. No, it was just a printed pamphlet. And I think he did list it in here somewhere. There's only like a few 100,000 printed. I did see it somewhere and I can't see it again now. Whatever. Yeah, it wasn't many, but the idea and the information and the rational arguments made in that pamphlet spread a lot all over the place.
Sold 120,000 copies, it says there. I think I can. Yeah.
And it sold 500,000 copies by the end of the year. So within a year, it's going up by nearly 400%, or just a bit less than 400%. So, and 66 million copies in America. A book would have to achieve 66 million copies in America to achieve the same status in terms of statistically how many people it's reaching. And that was just simply a pamphlet. And that pamphlet affected the development of America. as a nation state. So when you often hear this kind of argument of, oh, well, what's your solution? You're not telling us how to build the new world. You're not telling me which nails I need to knock in to build this. What the fuck? Are you using your brain? Are you using your own spirit? Why are you demanding that of me? You're just turning me into another politician. Whereas really, the most powerful weapon is that narrative. It's the stories we tell each other. The stories that we tell each other are how we build the world. They are the foundation, our shared heritage of stories, of mythology, of legend, of culture. They all stem out that same root of the information we share with each other, the stories we share with each other. And they don't necessarily have to be Hollywood or Disney kind of shit where, the good guy always wins and all that kind of. No. A lot of the really meaningful stories often don't necessarily have a happy ending, but that's part of why they're meaningful. Yeah. The world is not a guaranteed happy ending. That makes me tempted to show that other story about the blue balls. COVID causes blue balls. Yeah, but before I get too silly, that's the point. Words. I made this phrase, I don't know how many years ago now, a couple of years ago. I was chatting with Steve Tagoose, I was in the chat room. He was doing his show and was, exchanging in that kind of way, and was talking about these kind of concepts of dealing with the nation state or with the government, kind of the system power, the monolith that is the system. And I made this phrase, the statement, based on that classic old nursery rhyme, sticks and stones. Sticks and stones can break some bones, but words can destroy a nation. And that's really what it comes down to. That is the most powerful weapon. Information is the most powerful weapon. You can't make a sword without the information of how to make a sword.
And now we're in the time of truth information. And this year is revealing so much to us. That we were, like I say, a few years ago would have been called crazy or were being called nuts or whatever, but now you're seeing it actually unfolding. There you go. So it's now where we're heading is up to us. And I think if you get into the, the illusion of government and that, I mean, we just need to run what we need to run, and local communities need to get together more. That's what we need to do. And it's that, like I say, this has helped a lot of people actually come together in a good way, and there's been some, people obviously have split up as well. There's been a lot of that going on. I'm sure people know people who've had all that to deal with as well. And it's all, again, the way it's just been played out all year, chaotic all the way through, right from, this all started in sort of February time, early February, when people were beginning to, talk more, or we were even discussing it back. I'll have to listen back to some of the chats we were doing back in January, February, before it all got crazy. But I know we were taking the piss out of it then and saying how ridiculous and overreacting it was or whatever. Didn't quite know too much about it, if it was a weapon or whatever back then. But now we understand what the medical political complex is, or what they're doing to us. And how we move forward from that now is important. It really is. And patience is a thing, because we are moving through these changes. They don't come quickly. You've got to be, it's like a birthing process. It takes its time, and we're going through an angry, frustrating phase of that at the moment. And, they're pushing and, they're pulling, they're putting everything on top of us at the moment, or trying to maximum fear, moments and all that stuff. And we're seeing people react. Seen lots of things on on YouTube, whatever, people posting stuff, and seeing how the general public are reacting to this. And it's to me, we just, as we reach towards the end of this year, that's when we'll see more significant rises. I saw something interesting on brand new Tube yesterday, which was a lot of people broadcasting from every city around the UK, Scotland, England, Wales, Ireland, and broadcasting something from a town and interviewing people and stuff. And I can't remember what it was called now. But if you look on brand new Tube, you'll see all these on the latest video thing. These videos are there. There's quite a few of them. So that's good. That's people going out there, you know, now putting it out there. It's called, you know, it's waking people up to, you know, what really is going on. And those who, you know, I think lots of people are on, like, they know anyway, you know what I mean, but they're too sort of, they don't want to, you know, say anything or whatever. But there's you know, a lot of people now coming out, and by the end of the year, as we turn into the new year, we've got Brexit, don't forget, got to deal with that one. They could be pulling more stunts on us with food and stuff like that, and fresh food shortages, this type of thing. So, you know, that's we've got to deal with that as well. But as this energy shifts in, and as it's coming, as we've seen the chaos this year, it's, you know, it's coming in with a bit more, you know, force of change, freedom, choice, you know, that kind of thing. People waking up, seeing the lie, seeing through it all. It's getting more and more and more each day as we go through this. And as I said, and you mentioned, I said weeks ago, you know, we should applaud Boris for his bumbling bullshit, because he's woke a lot of people up. Thank you. You know, some people needed to see this shit and how useless you all really are. You know, whatever side of politics you're on, it's all the same. I'm not just, you know, putting down one side, because they're all the same. They all work in this big church, really, you know, connected to all the religious stuff. If you go and do your homework, you know, it's all just one big load of bullshit, and people are waking up to that. They're seeing it now more and more. It's a crash course for some people. You know, the last 6 months, it must be a hell of a ride for us. Like, Jesus, you know, yeah, we've had years to look into this and, you know, get our heads around some of the things that we thought, you know, maybe, you know, changes you, you know, when you find out truth and it starts all flowing in. It's like a download.
I feel, just for completeness, I have to disagree.
Go on. Yeah.
Simply because some of the situation at the moment is a constant fallacious accusation that we're all part of some kind of echo chamber or cult where everyone just agrees with each other. So I thought I'll throw in the occasional disagreement.
Disagree. Yeah, you got to disagree. It's all bollocks.
It's all bollocks.
It's all bollocks. Yeah.
I do think you're spot on there, and it's just a lot of what's happened over this year. One of the things that still, you know, rattles around in my head is the concept that if you were really an evil genius, you know, like, you know, often a lot of the conspiracy threads sort of implicate or imply that there's some kind of evil genius like Schwab, or there's a little group of them who get together and rule the world and stuff like that. If there are these supposed evil geniuses that are doing all this shit, why are they so crap at it? Because if they really were evil geniuses, why would they be making all these ridiculous contradictory statements and doing actions that they know will antagonize the public, doing things that they must be aware will cause the public to go, hang on a minute, why are you doing that? Doesn't make it. Why are they doing it in that fashion? It still rattles around in my head, but it does still tend to come back to that karmic requirement that they need you to consent, and that can't be done subconsciously. So there has to be enough revealing of what they are actually truly doing, so that you agree to it. So they sort of, it's like the bumbling murderer, you know, or the buffoon psychopath. That's probably a good one for Bojo, you know, the buffoon psychopath. That's like a superhero. Here comes Mr. Buffoon Psychopath. You know, he accidentally stabs people to death. Oh, I'm terribly sorry that I'm stabbing you. I just seem to fall in your direction. So sorry. Yeah, it's like they're doing that kind of thing, yeah? I'll leave that open. You know, it's a bit of a rhetorical question. I do wonder sometimes whether
it's meant to be, because just the way it's going, and that's how
a certain amount of what they put in front of us seems, it comes across that way. It's like, well, if you want me to believe that there really is an evil genius that's trying to take over the world and make us all this, that, and the other, why are they so fucking shit at what they're doing So they end up like Mike Myers, the evil genius, you know, the Dr. Evil. It's like Klaus Schwab, Dr. Evil. Their PR team must be aware that what they're putting in front of the public is going to elicit that kind of thought process or that kind of memory. You know, it's like, oh, we get Klaus Schwab to do this speech and we record him with this kind of framing on the video, and it's like, and they show it to us, the public, and we're all like, what, who the fuck's this Dr. Evil?
Yeah.
Are they really that bad at their jobs that they're not? I doubt it. No, sorry. I read Bernays' book, Propaganda. The guy wasn't dumb. He certainly wasn't dumb. You know, I read Huxley and whatever. He wasn't dumb. Absolutely not. You know, so who are these supposed evil geniuses, and why is it that they do things in a certain way so that they come across as cartoonified, buffoonish, or unbelievably ridiculous? You know,
maybe in their mindset they don't see that, but we do. Maybe that's the arrogance of it and the ego of it all. And they're just wrapped up in their own bullshit emotional stuff or their upbringing and everything else. They think we should just buy it, and they know they can send, like we've seen, sending the police, sending the, you know, their dogs to sort us out or whatever, you know.
The arrogance of the tyrant.
Yeah, yeah.
Like Caligula.
Like just so like up their own ass. Yeah. Because they're so disconnected from reality in a sense, you know. What most people, how we all live. So that's why, maybe. And that planetary energy is coming, that shift's coming. They know this is coming as well, by the way. You know, they do all this shit. They use all these dates and all this stuff for their own benefit. And that's why that great reset has been, you know, out there a lot, because they do want you to go down that direction or think that that's the savior.
And that's the only option.
And if it's the only option and nothing else has happened, then yeah, we just have to do what we do after that, don't we? But if people aren't going to, you know, stand up, I do feel there's going to be a big push. It's happening now. You know, there's people out all over the towns and cities, the weekends and stuff. That's going to grow and grow. And yeah, we're just going to see it all get better next year. Dare I say it? Yeah, I am. I think that's because we're going through this very difficult phase. It's waking up people. People aren't going to put up with the nonsense anymore. They're seeing through the nonsense of the program and the TV, the lies. And we are not, like I say, we're more aware. The energy coming in is making people more on it, if you like, more, you know, astute at things, more looking at things, more asking a few more questions, you know, because they're seeing them being lied to. And when you're being lied to, that's when, you know, your radar goes up and you start asking more questions and thinking, hang on a sec, if you're lying to me about that, what else are you up to? And it's as simple as that, really. It's putting them, you know, finally the pennies are dropping, you know, in the it's good, but it is a bit of a crash course, like I say, because they are bringing out things very quickly to try and steer us off into their direction. So it's, you know, it's a numbers game as well. And like I say, I'm seeing the numbers rising, so that's good.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I know sometimes they do that kind of thing deliberately because they want people to focus their attention, get your attention. Were you looking at the fingers? Yeah. That was a cheesy like game me and my mates used to play. You see if you can catch each other out, you know, just randomly you do that in front of one of your mates. And if they looked at your fingers, you'd be like, I got you. There's nothing there. Just grabbing your attention. I got your attention, didn't I?
Yeah.
Like fishing for attention kind of thing. But they do that to get people focused in a certain direction. So, you know, they'll, you know, I know we talked about this so many times over the years. Some event takes place and it's like them going, look over here. Look over here. You know, forget about that news that was just doing the rounds. No, look over here. Bojo on a slide, you know.
Yeah.
Things like that. They do it deliberately to fixate people, like lighting a lighter in front of a bunch of moths. And unfortunately, again, I'm not being derogatory to people in general. It's just unfortunate. That's the state of mind that a lot of people are in. They are half asleep, or half a sheep.
Half a ram. A ram and a half, isn't it? Is it 2 rams and a half? Can't remember.
1.5 rams.
Yeah.
So not quite finished, love. 1.5 rams. But they do that deliberately. They know for the majority of the public, they're focused on their own lives. They're going about their day. They're not exactly paying 100% attention to everything around them. Most of us don't do that constantly, yeah? So they can sort of jump things in front of you and grab your attention, and that makes you, oh, hang on, go that way, yeah. It's like following a Pied Piper effect.
Well, we've seen that, yeah, with the commercial mob with Russell Brand back in the day.
I listened to Mark Windows yesterday. It was late last night when I ended up listening to his, he does his weekly podcast, and he's talked about that kind of subject many, many times. He's making the point about how you got to be careful with a lot of the organised protests and protest groups at the moment, because as they always do, the system will create controlled opposition, or they'll try and infiltrate any organised group that begins.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that to put people off. I don't think he was either in his coverage. He's just trying to give people information so they don't get caught out or tripped up or messed around by those kind of groups. Yeah. But it shouldn't put you off. That just should make you more aware and less naive. Because a lot of what the system relies on is that half asleep effect that they've put you into. They lull you into that state of semi-sleep, like the snake in the The Sword in the Stone, the Disney movie. Trust in me, doing these little songs to hypnotize people. That's what the state is doing constantly. Trust in me, trust in me. And in that semi-sleep state that a lot of people are in, they get presented with that kind of thing from the government. They're like, oh, shit, I need to do this now. Oh, okay, put the mask on. I better do it because otherwise the master will be angry with me. They keep forgetting that they are the master. The government is not your master. They are your servants.
Yeah.
I think there was a good video doing the rounds last week about one of the gym owners. I'm not sure if it was in Liverpool or Manchester. I know it was up north, sorry, I can't remember. But he'd recorded himself talking to the council twats and the police that had turned up at his gym. And he kept reminding them, like, I am the executive officer. You are all my servants. So when I speak, you should shut up and listen to me because I'm the executive officer. I will be courteous and allow you to speak. I want to hear what you've got to say. But when I speak, you should shut up and listen because I'm, in effect, the CEO, which is true for every taxpayer. They are your servants.
Yeah. I was thinking back to how they got that sort of that type of thinking in people's minds going way back to like just after the Second World War. Where they had that society built up and then the NHS built, the hospital, free healthcare, and you give people anything free after the war, and all that stuff. It was like a revolution, and people liked the government, I suppose, and thought they were good throughout that time.
In an emergency, they are often the groupings that are like the COG, the COG, the continuity of government. They are the grouping that can often survive a disaster period or a chaotic period. That's classically what they're supposed to do. Really, that's sort of like the core remit of a governmental body. You're supposed to be doing all the bureaucratic drudgery work that keeps society ticking over, even if there's some kind of disaster or catastrophe. That's what you're paid to do. You're not paid to create the catastrophe and then try and give yourself all pay rises, even though you've all fucked up the job you're supposed to be competent at.
Well, they created the wars anyway, as I said, the war that, anyway, that's another.
The public sector pay freeze that they announced the other day, This is not so long after they gave themselves a pay rise, but of course...
that's fair, isn't it? Would you like a pay rise? Yes. It's like, oh, good, let's have a pay rise. That's how they do it.
Santa COVID. Santa COVID came to visit us and gave us more money.
20%, 30%, whatever.
Let me just check my notes, see if I missed anything I meant to mention. Council reptiles, yes. That was just in connection to the crocodile tears. Yeah, talk about dinosaurs and your world being over and things like that. It was just in my mind, it was making me think of that kind of connection to the reptile brain, that kind of R complex base drives of, can I eat it? Can I fuck it? What do I do with it? Is it a danger to my own survival? The fear manipulation of things like I was talking about with the bereavement process, that's all stems from fear of mortality and fear of loss.
Yeah.
So it's a deep core code within our minds, that kind of element. But in terms of the council reptiles, I was just thinking of the way that sort of dinosaur of the old world. Dinosaurs were reptiles mainly. Crocodiles are reptiles. Crocodiles are pretty much the same as they were however many millions of years ago. They are one of the, like, what they call living dinosaurs. And crocodile tears made that connection for me and had me thinking about that kind of element. So they are a dinosaur of the old world, because this is an opportunity for the stepping stone into a new future, where we don't have to go the direction they want us to go, where it's this dystopian smart city nightmare where everybody has to be constantly tracked and traced, and you have to get tested twice a week before you're allowed to be free. You get your freedom passport and all that silliness. Or actually, that's an extreme centralization that eventually also has or equates to a global centralization. That's the global New World Order. So if we go the other direction, that's decentralizing, that means we're still losing that old world that we used to have in 2019, 2018, but we could keep all the stuff that we liked about 2019, because those cultures and traditions that we like and cherish, they exist because we keep repeating them. So if we want to keep them, we keep repeating them. They tell us we can't have Christmas anymore. If you want to have Christmas, you have Christmas.
Exactly.
That is an option where we take that power back that has been given to that massive infrastructure called government. Stop feeding the beast. We keep feeding it. It's getting bigger and bigger to the point now where it wants the whole world. The whole planet in one big bite. It can't consume enough. It needs all of it. Whereas if we stop feeding it, it will shrink and shrink and shrink, and it will perform a more direct function. I would argue that was what it was meant to do originally. I'm an anarchist / minarchist. I think if people organise in such a way where they want to have some kind of what you'd call government or council or state, that's their choice. As an anarchist, I believe that's their choice. If they choose to live that way, that's up to them. I would suggest that they keep it as minimal as possible. Minarchist. If you're going to have a government, you have the most minimal government required to perform the functions that you want. Everything else is an accumulation of power that eventually leads to shit like we've got now. That requires that. Sorry, just
go on.
Clear. That requires a couple of things. One, an independent populace, independent more in thought and spirit than necessarily physical requirements, but that's part of the group effect of society, that we help each other with those needs. But really, you need people that are independent of spirit and mind, and that awareness, self-awareness of their own responsibility within that world, and their own ability to use their own authorship, use their own power, is the only way I can think to describe it quickly. If the population was like that, more independent people would lead to a smaller and smaller government and less need for government. A more decentralized infrastructure would remove any need for a centralized infrastructure. It wouldn't be centralized because it would be spread everywhere. That's what decentralization can do. Why have one giant node on the top of a mountain when you can have the whole world filled with lots of little nodes? You know, it's like the pixels on your computer screen. It wouldn't really work very well if you just had one big giant pixel. You'd be a bit limited on the pictures you can see with that one singular giant pixel. Whereas when you got lots of independent pixels that can be a different gradation individually from each other, we can create all these visual fantasticnesses. Making up words now, but you get the point. To me, that's the position we're on. And I think it's why, or part of the reason why, they have made their grab for power in such an overt yet buffoonish fashion. They know that there's going to be a lot of the public that are aware enough to see that what they're doing is ridiculous and over the top, but they may be aware of that, but are they still frightened enough of the government? Because that's what the government is based on, fear. So if the person that I'm referring to in that example joins in the proposed plan because they're inclined to do so from a basis of fear, as in they're afraid of the consequences if they don't, or they're afraid of the, they believe the lie and they're afraid of the illness and all that shit, so they think the only way they're going to be saved is by going along with the plan, all based on fear. If that happens, then that little bubble that they create will be more solid and stronger. It's like a fascist regime. Literally, the fasci, the bundle of sticks, becomes stronger than the one. But that bundle only gathers together because they've all been frightened into that position. If they weren't frightened, they probably wouldn't want to be tied up with all those other sticks, because they might not really get along with all those other sticks very well. Yeah, the other sticks might do things or want things that they don't agree with or like. So people would rather be, not grouped in that fashion, not forcibly tied together. I hope that makes sense. I know I've been rambling a bit tonight.
No. I was just thinking the element of air, which is the age of Aquarius, isn't it? Air element.
Yes, yeah.
Breath of fresh air coming and to, blow it all away.
Yeah, clearing the smog, clearing the mist.
Yeah.
The apocalypse effects, the revealing, the great revelation, the removal of the lies, the fog of the lies, the obfuscation, the illusion is being destroyed, it's falling apart. Well, that's sort of an element. I didn't think to put it in my notes, but now you mentioned it, it's reminded me of it. One of the elements of talking about how the old world is dead. I guarantee you in 2021, there's a hell of a lot more people now that have realized that the way the government operates primarily is through lying to the public, through manipulating statistics, through manipulating people, making them scared into doing something when there's no real justification for it. 10 years ago, how many people did we know that had already gone through that realization? Not that many. The majority of people were still stuck in that bargaining phase of thinking, oh, they'd never do that. No, that can't be possible. Well, it's more denial than bargaining, isn't it?
Yeah.
But you get the point. They were not at the point of realizing that the infrastructure of power relies primarily on fear, and they will elicit that fear in you in whatever way they can. Most of it is based on lies, illusion. The beast is not as big as it makes itself look. It shrouds itself in illusion to make itself look big and terrifying and scary, whereas really it's fat twats like Bojo. And I know he's a bit of a meat puppet. He's certainly not the evil genius behind all this shit, but a lot of them are like him. They're just meat puppets that they don't give a fuck about anyone else. They're just getting their own out of the situation. Fat buffoons.
Well, will there be court cases next year?
Well, yeah, I hope so. Maybe not next year, but certainly the inquiries are going to start soon.
Yes.
I think one of the main things will be the inquiries into the data.
Yeah.
And why the majority of the press aren't asking that kind of question. What is going on at the Office of National Statistics when they can put out however many graphs it were? There was tens of, I don't know if there was 100, but there's certainly a hell of a lot of those graphs that they used on that presentation. How can the Office of National Statistics be putting out that crappy information that was debunked within hours and has now got to the point where even a publication like the Daily Mail is calling out those graphs and statistics? Office of National Statistics, it's an official government bureau. How can they be getting away with doing that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Where the fucking fact checkers going, hang on a minute, they publish loads of bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so inquiries like that, I think, might start being presented or suggested, proposals being put forward and whatever. Now, so I've been bunged up and coughing again this week. I still haven't managed to get rid of this cold. It is, I think, you know, because supposedly you can get long COVID, which I think is just bunkum, but I've had this cold for a few days, and it's commonly a rhinovirus, you know, when it's just in your nose and whatever, and you haven't got all the other kind of like flu effects and shit. So have I got long rhino? Is this how they get a work day? Yeah, whenever you get some particular illness, there's automatically this add-on version called lung, whatever it is. I saw Carl Vernon do one of his little comedy kind of videos about the long Hancock. Yeah, that's the kind of effect we're getting at the moment, isn't it? Yeah, the ridiculous, the clown show has gone on so long that now everybody in the circus is sitting there looking at their watch going, fucking how many months worth of clowns dancing around? This is, oh man, my arse is getting sore now. I need to stand up and walk around a bit. Yeah, get out in the fresh air and buy some candy floss. And then go and release all the animals from the cages. Yeah. Maybe not. Yeah, maybe it'd be a good place to wrap it up there before I start coughing more. Hello, Jam Noise. I played your little song. Well, you know, your singing version of Top of Creation, Top of the World. I thought that was class. Thank you. Alan McVicker, hello, Al. Hope you're all right. Up in the Scotland. I know it's getting fucking ridiculous up in Scotland now. We're not allowed up there anymore. Did you know? Yeah, they closed the border to Scotland.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Everything's shut. Even the Welsh border's apparently shut as well.
No English allowed. Get off my land. That was a contradiction as well of there's a global pandemic that requires a global response to deal with it, but every country has their own little individual pharmaceutical industry or company that they're backing to produce a different vaccine. So there's now like tens of different vaccines all being rushed by different nations around the world. So I thought it was a global thing that was happening, and yet you're all arguing about, oh no, our vaccine's better than yours. The Russian vaccine doesn't really work. It's shit. Buy ours instead.
There was the vaccine that I think had to be kept at minus 70 degrees. Yeah. And
yeah, that's the mRNA one.
Difficult to, store. You know,
even though Bojo and Hancock are promising that there's going to be a rollout of mass vaccinations in the UK, so how are they going to do this when it's got to be stored at minus 70? What happens during getting it out of the vial and to the patient? You know, is it going to combust because it's overheating?
It's all bollocks, all of it.
Yeah.
And the border thing's bollocks as well. People are traveling and just go where you need to go and do what you need to do, and don't live in fear.
I'll do a quick scroll through the chat. I'm sorry if I miss you out. My usual, comment and caveat. I often don't get the whole chat room in one go because the way it cashes out. And sometimes there's so many people in the chat, it would take too long to shout out to everyone. So, George Wachowski, hello, mate. Thanks for joining in the chat. And Foxtrot, hello. quick scroll down. Gemini72. Go and check our channel, folks. And the UK Spoof News, where she does comedy skit. What would you call them? Skits, show, parodies.
Parodies. Yeah. That sort of thing. Yeah.
Satirical comedy clips. New Being, hello. Thanks for joining in. I hope you're right. Over in Sweden, I did see that they're going to start introducing some restrictions in Sweden now. I'm not sure how extensive that is, but they were. I think
they finally got there. Then in the end.
Yeah, that's what I think. That's the way it was sort of presented. He's like, oh, Sweden's been holding out for ages, but in the end, they saw that we were correct, and they're going to start doing what we want now. I don't believe it.
No.
I think they're just getting pressured to fucking join in the bullshit. Cro-Magnon, hello. Back to secret religious services, yeah. The Jesuits and the Rosicrucians and the like boys' clubs. Where they're all sneaking around in the shadows, pretending to be ninjas, but they're not. They're not at all. Jason Edwards, hello. Keep scrolling. I think I've said hello to most of you guys in the chat now. Guys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Oh no, I better not do that. I'll start getting silly. It's just, it was descending to silly catchphrases, which I don't want to tumble down that rabbit hole.
Think of a few for Wednesday, maybe.
Yeah. Build back better.
Yeah.
Build buggering Boris. Krishna, hello. Thanks for joining in the chat. Yeah, and Steve Tagoose, you're in the chat as well. I wasn't sure if you were there. Hello, mate. And B what's up? Hello. What's up? See, catchphrases, isn't it? See, that's how much they invade your brain. Yeah, fill you up with these mimetic bubblegum. Made in UK PLC. Hello, mate. And Original Underground, hello. And Simon Boyle. Boyan? Where did I get Boyan from? You suddenly become Irish or something. Boyan. Simon Boyle, hello. I think I've shed hello to everyone, as far as I know, while I'm scrolling down. Apologies if I missed you out. Nothing personal. Jalolo, hello. Okay, I'll stop there because otherwise it might get silly. We're just coming up to the hour. Thanks to guys for joining. Thanks to Pete for joining in.
Cheers, Cookie. And to all in the chat, hello.
Yeah, I was chatting with the other guys earlier. Thanks to everyone joining in the chat with us as we're live broadcasting. Thanks for please stop the ride dropping in as well. Please go and check her channel out. We'll see you again soon. Thanks for giving us your attention for a couple of hours, folks. Don't believe the hype, don't believe the bullshit, but don't think it's all over yet. It's not. The fat lady's rapidly losing weight, and when she finally sings, it's going to be a very inspiring aria to raise your spirits and point your vision in the direction of the horizon. It ain't over yet, definitely not.
Exactly.
So we'll be back again Wednesday night on the Reality Chat channel, 8 p.m. GMT. Steve Goose will be on Thursday night with the mystery show. And yeah, I can't think of anything else to jump in with. Catch you again soon, folks. Take care.
Cheers all.
Cut cheese. Click the button.